I will just check that. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Strange how temperamental the stream can be sometimes. I was saying, how is everyone? How are you doing, BE8? Ah dear. Not ideal if people can't hear me on the stream, is it? Not to worry. But anyway, it's all good now. Right, here we are in Elite Dangerous, as the stream advertised. We have this an exploration stream, like sort of space madness episode, as it were. I'm not too far from the bubble. This is my alternate account. I'm trying to sort of go back to the bubble and do some minor exploring on the way. I'm going to go off plane slightly here, because you can see by where my cursor is the number, minus 318 is kind of 300 below the galactic plane. And anything off plane, i.e. above or below 0, tends to be more likely to find interesting things, because things on the galactic plane, like 0 in terms of height, are more likely to be explored. But there we are. Well, that's good, BA. Any exploration is good in my mind, short or long. It's a good use of your time, definitely. As you say, Odyssey's only, about a week away, really, isn't it? So, yeah, I think a lot of people looking forward to that still. I do feel sorry for people who are on consoles who have to wait for it, because that's just a pain. I mean, it's unfortunate, really, because I'd prefer as a community we all kind of move together, but that's not the way it's being played out right now. No, absolutely, BA. It's off-plane does give really good views. Obviously, depending exactly where you are, some better than others, but generally speaking, if you go off-plane in the galaxy, you'll discover more interesting systems, have better views generally, because obviously you go to like great heights or great depths in the galaxy, you can see a lot more stuff. And in terms of like, you can look down upon the galaxy, or up to it, depending on where you are, depending on your perspective, because in space it's all relative anyway. So yeah, it's nice. See what nonsense I've got up here with the fleet carrier upkeep. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, Thargoids and non-binaries, is interesting, because this is my fleet carrier parked the DSSA carrier on the other side of the galaxy. And it is not cheap. As you can tell, it costs me about 24 million a week just to exist. Oh my. But there you have it. Not a cheap thing to do. And because on this other galaxy I don't have regular use of it. It is, I say, a DSSA station. Effectively. That's what the DSSA carriers really are. They are fleet carriers that are parked in places all over the galaxy permanently. And they are essentially stations, They are stations and all, but name the same facilities, a lot of outposts, and you can actually dock large ships with them, which you can't do, obviously, with an outpost. So you've got a Corvette or an Anaconda, whatever large ship you have, then it's nice and convenient. I'm not sure about the lighting on this with my image on the camera. I'm not sure how flattering it actually is, but I always change that. They've got to laugh. Yeah, at the moment I'm sort of buckyballing until I actually get off plane slightly, and then I'll start to look at individual systems a bit more. Yeah. It's because I've got a little monitor sort of laptop at the side to sort of see what the stream sort of looks like. And yeah, I'm not sure this lighting is doing me much of a favour, to be honest. I was going to say justice for a second, but it's not really justice, is it? It's more doing me a favour. I'll see. Okay. Let's say I haven't got too many of the basic warning or announcement from the computer switched on. But system scan is one of them that I've left on, and the emergency ones generally. I don't like to be interrupted because usually it's telling me something I already know 99 times out of 100. So yeah, it's only the critical ones, like anything that's like heat overload or things that will damage your ship or being attacked, that are really sort of worthwhile warnings anyway. Because those, obviously, if you don't do anything about them, they can have a destruction of your ship, and that's not what you want. So that's it. I keep far fewer on than most people, I've noticed. But yeah, for you, those who aren't necessarily familiar with the exploration terminology, or new to Elite Dangerous completely, buckyballing is just move between two places as quickly as you can, really, be that be inside a star system or between different star systems. And this, at the moment, I'm buckyballing between here and a sort of almost random point that I've picked, about 300 beneath the galactic plane. Oh, hey, Vanta Black. How are you? How's it going? Anyone notices my name of my ship, Bad Out of Croydon? It's obviously sort of a jokey name. Don't know how many of you have been to Croydon in the UK. It's got a reputation for being a little bit boring, hence it's a kind of slightly ironic kind of name. It's not a bad place or anything. It's not like the most exciting in the world, but you know, it's more like playing on the stereotype than it is the reality. The reality is not that bad a place at all. Well, that's good to hear, Vanta Black. Yeah, I'm alright. I've booked my vaccination appointment for tomorrow. So I got that to look forward to. I'm going to stream tomorrow, then get it done. So yeah, it's like I don't want to stream after I've had a vaccine shot. That might not go very well. It's like, well, what's wrong with Yannick there? He's looking a bit unwell. It's like, oh, he's just been shot up with COVID vaccine. It's like, oh yeah, that explains why he looks like he's about to pass out and die, you know. I mean, that's like worst case basically, but I just don't want that happening. So yeah, I'll do a sort of early morning-ish stream and then get that done, and then I won't have to worry as much anymore about the plague that sweeps our lands. I'm hoping everyone will get it soon. That's great news as well, Vanta Black. You got your second. That's even better, actually. You're ahead of me in that way. It's one of those things about the vaccination. It's like one of those areas of life, like basically the iller you are, the weaker you are, the further you ahead in the queue, which as it should be. Basically, it's like, you know, if you're really healthy, then you're pretty much at the back of the queue. I know a lot of people, friends of mine, who've, and yeah, elite players, well, I know, have been vaccinated before me. There's a hell of a lot of people who already have, but it's just one of those things. I think once you get your first dose, that's the major sort of weight lifted from your mind. At least you know you're not likely to die from it anytime soon, but that's a good thing. Can only be a good thing. No, yeah, I'd recommend everyone get their vaccination as soon as they possibly can. I know it very much depends on like which country you're in and you know what the health system there is like, and you know other factors. Because I have heard of some people, this is mostly in the UK, but some other countries as well in Europe, that they've been given the option of being vaccinated, but the centre that they're going to be vaccinated in is like a long way away, or it's like a time of day or evening that they couldn't possibly get there, and it's just kind of difficult to find a sort of good place or a good slot, really. But yeah, there is so that's some good news at least. Obviously, did the recent fundraiser for the virus emergency that was going on in India. We did actually raise more than the target in the end. We got 201 and that was £1 over what the target was. So yeah, thanks to everyone in retrospect who was there. I think I thanked everyone at the time, but just in case people weren't there at the finale, thank you for everyone who was in the stream, everyone who contributed to it, everyone who lurked. It's all good, really. You all did your bit, and I thank you all for it. But yeah, that was a good one. I was very tired for a long time after. I don't know how people do 24-hour streams. It's just like, staying on 24 hours is one thing. That can be done without that much difficulty, but stream for 24 hours? That's hard. That's really hard. I mean, I felt virtually going to keel over after 12. But yeah, it's like, you know, my hat goes off to anyone who can pull off 24-hour stream. Doesn't matter what age you are, even if you were like 18 and had like the most energy in the world, it would still be, you know, a drain. Oh, cool, you've got a 5G phone, Vantabite. Oh, we'll see, yeah, the vaccine, yeah, thing about, yeah, the 5G reception. Sorry, I thought you were being serious for a second. Yeah, no, exactly. It's the 5G reception, the Microsoft upgrades, all the other good things that comes with the vaccine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the 5G, the worst conspiracy theory possibly in history, apart from maybe Flat Earth. I mean, Flat Earth is just so dumb it makes 5G look almost plausible, and it isn't at all plausible. I wonder how many people who say they believe in Flat Earth theory do actually believe in it, who aren't just trolling people. I do wonder. I mean, some obviously are. Some do take it seriously, but I'm sure most people who claim it are just doing it for a laugh, just to wind people up. I mean, I hope that's the case. If it isn't, that's a serious problem. But yeah, 5G reception for everyone. Vaccine, go. Oh, that's always the thing about the 5G sort of paranoia. It's like, if you look at like the 5G maps in like most Western countries, or any country for that matter, there aren't that many places who've got them. Or if they exist, they're usually like in city centres of big cities. I mean, just looking through Europe, most places don't really have them. I say, unless you're like in the middle of a big city centre or something. The coverage is pretty minimal, almost everywhere. Or like maybe like big regional towns have it to a certain extent as well, but it'll be a long time before there's like significant 5G coverage. It sounds pretty good though, I will say. Yeah. 5G vaccine for a 5G world. Yes, indeed. Oh, that's a funny thought. It's quite talking about actually about 5G stuff. Is that they my phone company has been trying to sell me like actual 5G phones recently. I was thinking, well, you haven't actually got the network ready. So I mean, you could get a phone and it's going to work only on 4G. So you're just buying it for some kind of future connectivity. I mean, yeah, if you've got the money, fair enough. But these are pretty expensive bits of equipment. And, you know, there's not most places you can't really use that connectivity anyway. Not yet, anyhow. Also, you know that the vaccine conspiracy of 5G and things, or just like 5G conspiracy generally? One of the funniest and saddest parts of it is that people setting fire to what they think are 5G towers when they're just like regular 4G towers. It's like, really? I mean, I don't expect them to have great technical knowledge, but it's just like, you set fire to your own cell phone mast. Why? Oh, you're crazy. Oh, that's a good reason. Don't do that out there, kids. Setting fire to stuff is generally bad news. Unless it's a bonfire or something that's supposed to be set fire to, or a barbecue. That's I definitely approve then, you know. 5G barbecue? Oh, totally Vantablack. Misinformation overload. Yeah. I was talking to another elite player the other day actually, and we were kind of agreeing that, I mean, the internet, for all its great ability to transmit like cool things, films, videos, music, you know, lots of just any information you really want, education or what have you. It spreads lies and misinformation so easily as well. It's just sad. It really is. And then you get conspiracy theorists like linking up with each other on websites, and it's just mind-blowingly bad. Like, 'cause then they become so indoctrinated and so convinced that they're right, despite the fact there's like literally no evidence at all. Yeah, I mean, it depends how far they're into it. I mean, I've spoken to some people who are, you know, should we say, they're a little bit that way, but they're not too bad, as in they can be kind of talked down from it, or like kind of realise that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Those people are easy to talk to, but it's the lunatic sort of hardcore nutcases who are the problem. Well, absolutely, BE8. Yeah, it's if the information that they're being fed is of a poor quality, yeah, that's a problem. Especially from a young age, if you get, you know, a lot of really sort of terrible or just nonsensical information coming in, it's that helps shape your worldview and not in a good way. No, totally Vantablack. That's what I was thinking in the early years of the internet. I mean, there was a lot more sort of optimism about that. But that's the thing with just anything online. It's like whatever was there before, but amplified. All the good and all the bad, and everything else just amplified. Researchers all the world over, all, you know, scientists and doctors, etc., can talk to each other much more easily and find a quicker way to find cures, like coronavirus, for example. I'm sure that was accelerated by the internet and just, you know, IT generally. You know, mass computation helping, you know, distributed computation as well. Must have helped to some degree. But yeah, but the downside is that the conspiracy theorists also talk to each other a lot more, and then they reinforce each other's worldview. But that's the thing, a lot of these things become cycles. You have a virtuous cycle of, you know, people enlightening each other through information and research, and then you can have people who are negatively reinforcing each other with conspiracy theories. And it always irks me particularly when you get people who say that, oh, you know, you do your research and whatever conspiracy theories. Basically, it's like, what you're doing is not research. Talking to other conspiracy theorists and just sharing random made-up information or just sheer paranoia is not research. You know what I mean? It's like such an abuse of the word. But again, I've seen a lot of that recently. You know, people just like misusing words, and that kind of has nothing to do with the actual meaning of the word at all. It's like the whole point of words, it's supposed to be like a common frame of reference. Like, even if people might kind of have different ideas of what they want the world to be like, or the, you know, what their ideology is, what their political views are, what their views on whatever part of life is, you know, there has to be some kind of common frame where you can't just completely change the meaning of a word overnight just because you fancy it or you think it's useful to your argument. That's why you should invent new words. If you really want to describe a new concept or a new idea or a movement or whatever, then, you know, make new ones up or make up an acronym or whatever to describe what you want. Don't start changing the meaning of words that already exist. It's just insane. I don't think, I mean, in all fairness, I think that the elite community, one of the strengths is that there aren't too many conspiracy theorists in it. You do find the odd one, but there aren't that many of them. I think because it tends to be a sort of like the logic, if you tend to like space, you tend to sort of have at least some faith in science, or at least some kind of belief in it. And therefore you're more likely to like do your own actual research and look into things, and if you're not sure, you'll look something up, you know. Especially that's what the internet's good at, you know, you Google stuff. It's like, it's always unbelievable how some lazy people get. It's like, Google's a thing, you know, you can look up pretty much anything, or at least you can get a general idea what it's about. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up. It ain't hard. It take you a few seconds, maybe. Okay, I'm not saying you should become an expert, but like, you know, takes you 4 seconds to Google something, and then maybe like another 30 seconds to a minute reading, like, you know, some kind of summary of what the hell it might be about, even vaguely, you know. Oh yeah, trying to make new words up. That could be a lot of fun, actually. It isn't just conspiracy theorists who should have, you know, a monopoly on this. I think there was a site I saw recently that was just like using AI to try and like generate new company names, you know, like meaningless new sort of words almost, just out of thin air. See if I can try and find it, but it's something like, this company does not exist. It's a bit similar to that site called This Face Does Not Exist, where it like randomly generates a face of a person that doesn't actually exist in real life, just from like an AI sort of bot, really. Which is pretty clever. It's one of the better sort of uses of AI that I've seen, but yeah, it does that with company names and like inventing new, seemingly meaningless words. But I suppose a lot of the time, what's the meaning that we ascribe to things, we give to things. Just thinking back to what you were saying also, Vanta Black, about the internet in the early 2000s. I was thinking that if the present pandemic had happened back then, when the internet was in its kind of, you know, infancy, really, it would have been so much harder on everybody, because, you know, it'd been harder to keep people informed and entertained, and, you know, you just had to rely on whatever DVDs or CDs that you had mostly for entertainment, whatever, or even old VHS if you still had them hanging around. It's kind of fun. Shouldn't be too far from my destination now. 13. Yeah, going a bit off plane, then I'll start scanning. Don't overheat the ship. Cool. I'm going for only scoopable stars on this route anyway. I'm not going through any brown dwarfs, hopefully. You always find the odd one here or there, but I'm trying to avoid them right now. To anyone who's just joining the stream, I welcome you all. I am Commander Yannick, and we are doing the exploration and space madness out here in the sort of slightly to the east of the bubble part of the galaxy, and hopefully trying to find some new things that have not been scanned by other people. Come say hi in the chat, you're very welcome. Lurkers are welcome too, it's all good. If you like the channel, please follow. A follow is free, and it does a lot of good for the channel too. Thank you for everyone who's already followed. I actually got my first my first personal sort of donation recently for the channel, which is, yeah, pretty thrilling actually. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but I was just happy to get anything at all, and that was pretty cool. So that definitely made me feel a lot better. Okay. A lot of red dwarf stars we're going through, but then again, there's hardly a surprise. I mean, a lot of people are aware in the galaxy, in real life and in Elite, because it's a pretty good simulation of the galaxy. The red dwarf cluster star, I think, is the most numerous, most common star out there. It's pretty small. They burn very slowly and gradually. I mean, they last like 10 times as long as Class G stars, like our star in our solar system, in real life. Yeah, like a red dwarf will last many times longer than a bigger, brighter star. But it burns very dimly. So it's like hydrogen doesn't get burned out too quickly, doesn't get fused too fast. But most of the galaxy, mass-wise, forget dark matter and just the matter we can actually see, is actually Class M red dwarf stars. There's just so many of them out there. I mean, Elite does a beautiful job of simulating that, but there's like countless of those. They're just everywhere. But they are like the smallest scoopable star that you can find. And I mean, in terms of if you want a buckyball in the game from system to system, the quickest way is probably going through a whole series of red dwarfs. Because basically, because they're small stars, they're very quickly to sort of round the star, make a quick scoop, or just bypass it completely and just go straight to another jump. Because it's nice and small, obviously, you don't tend to get slowed down. The bigger the star, the longer it takes to go around it. And therefore, the longer you'll be in the system before you can jump. So if you're literally trying to save every second and jump to as many systems as quickly as you can, you know, a series of red dwarfs is like go to the filters in the Galactic Map and select only red dwarfs, and yeah, and then you can traverse the galaxy even quicker. See, you're in a real hurry to do them. Most of the time, I'm not in that much of a hurry. Like, interesting, like this star is a Class F white star, and that is actually somewhat larger than our Sun, which is a Class G yellow star. And yeah, it's obviously the bigger the star, yeah, the longer it takes to go around the outside of it, or orbit it, or whatever you want to do. But it's yeah, I try to keep most of the scoopable stars on the galactic filter to try and avoid the unscoopable ones. It's just like a standard Explorer default, I suppose. If you want to visit some like off the beaten track systems as well, I mean, you can then obviously turn on the filters to put the various sort of brown dwarf types on. Obviously, you got to be careful in those ones. Obviously, you don't go through too big a field of them, or that your range is enough. And usually, like 30 plus light years is good for an explorer. Anything less than that, it might be a bit trickier. But yeah, you don't want to get stuck inside a sort of a whole field of brown dwarves. I think that's not so dangerous these days, actually, as it used to be. Earlier in the game, when ranges were much shorter, it was much more of a risk to be stuck, and also the route plotter wasn't very sophisticated, just literally system by system plotter, and it wouldn't guarantee to take you to a fuel star. So if you got stuck in a brown dwarf field and you were running low on fuel, you were sort of like scrambling like mad to try and find the nearest fuel star. Otherwise, you would run out of fuel and you would be done for. Yeah, that's absolutely true. BE8, you know, most brown dwarf systems are boring, apart from the ones that are the exceptions, and those exceptions are usually Guardian ruins. And every now and then you find something else that's interesting in a brown dwarf system. But you're right, most of the time they're fairly dull, and that's usually the reason I bypass them. But once in a while there is an exception to the rule. I know some people just leave them on, but yeah, I usually only do that if I have a particular reason to do that. If like we're looking for something and we don't know what kind of system that it's in, then I might actually put a whole sort of spectrum of stars on the filter. Thinking my first exploration ship was a hauler with a range of 17 light years. It's actually amazing to think that I got anywhere at all, but I did. It took a long time to get anywhere, but I did. I think I made a few thousand light years away from the bubble at that point. But yeah, it's slow going. And that's the thing, technically speaking, you can explore in anything, but just obviously the less range you have, the harder it becomes. Yeah, I mean, in just my own personal preference, I always think it's better to have a good range, like, you know, above 50 light years, and because then you can get to most stars in the galaxy, most regions, and you know, are generally accessible to you, and because you can always turn on to economy if you need to, you know, like jump to a lot of short economical jumps, and I sometimes do that if I want to explore a particular region in detail. Sometimes also for the money, and this particular account, because it was the one connected to my fleet carrier, it's the one I really need the most money for, because I need the upkeep money for the fleet carrier. So yeah, I'm exploring part for fun and partly to get some monies. Obviously, you can get some amount of money just through going through the system, honking it, which is pressing the Discovery scanner and getting a rough scan of the system. You can get, obviously, more money. The more you scan, basically, and the more detail, the more money that you get. If you go to the FSS in the system, which is the next sort of level of scan down, you get more details for individual bodies. and then the most detailed form of scan is the detail scanner, where you have to be quite close to a planet to do that, because they're basically a series of probes that you fire off on the spacecraft, and it gives you a more detailed scan with all the astronomical data of that planet. If it's a landable planet, it can also show up in very great details, like the geological sites that might be there, biological sites. Geological sites being things like, thermal sort of volcanic vents, basically, in the surface of the planet, and biological ones being various forms of like space fungi, really, and other sort of plants like brain trees, literally a tree with a little brain looking thing attached to it. It's confusing because there's a town in England called Braintree as well. Don't ask me why it's called that. I suspect it's some old Gaelic or even Latin word that's been sort of anglicised, turned into a more English sounding word. That's often the way slightly odd named towns tend to get their names from. Oh, cool, Vantablack, you're getting into combat more. What kind of combat? Is it PvP or PvE that you've been doing? Well, that's cool. I mean, PvE is a worthwhile thing to do as well. I don't do much PvP. I've done it a couple of times, but, well, more than a couple of times, but always sort of consensual PvP kind of stuff. But yeah, PvE is most of the stuff that I do in combat. But yeah, it does take a while, absolutely, BA, yeah. It is a hard grind to do that, to get to Combat Elite. I've not actually made it yet. I keep going through these sort of phases of trying to get there and then sort of getting a bit bored with it, or just, just getting sort of a bit tired of it and wanting to do something else, and then moving back to doing other things, mining, exploration, etc. But yeah, absolutely good luck with that too, Vantablack, yeah. I should really try more myself. Another thing about combat is, unsurprisingly, it's like much more exciting for the stream. That's why you see a lot of people who stream Elite will often be doing combat, or doing a bit of combat anyway. Obviously lots of other stuff to be doing in Elite Dangerous, but combat's the most sort of cool looking thing for anyone watching. 50% master. Okay, so you're a bit behind me at the moment. I'm at Dangerous, I think. Yeah, it's Dangerous. It's Dangerous, Deadly, then Elite. It's the thing with all the ranks, especially, is like obviously they go up, not exponentially, but they go up like quite a lot between, especially the higher ranks. I think I'm nowhere near at the moment either. I've been on Dangerous for quite a while. But yeah, so I think it's like, if you set your mind to it, you might even get it quicker than I do at this rate, to be honest. I don't do a huge amount of combat. So I definitely go through phases of it though. This guy might stream some more combat in the near future. That's probably a good way of doing it, actually. That would be fun. But yeah, definitely would be fun. Should probably get some people in the stream to do some PvE as well. That might be fun. Like collective wing PvE. Like on the charity stream, we did some of that as well. Very briefly. Cool, that's Black. I'll do that actually. Yeah. Tomorrow I'm on earlier. I don't know when you'll be around, but yeah, tomorrow's stream I'll be. Let me see if I need to be out. I'll probably do the stream from about 8 onwards for a few hours, and that's like 8 UK time though. That's going to be what 700 hours UTC. But yeah, there'll be other streams next week as well that I'll be doing at like vaguely normal times. Oh yes. It's interesting all this bits of streaming, because just the talking to an audience is something I've done a lot, obviously, on expedition organising. Even though the audience can talk straight back to me on that because it's on Discord, but that bit I'm kind of used to. But the visual part of it, you know, the cam and everything, is something I'm not really that used to at all. But it's definitely new. I mean, trying to like find a good balance of it. Especially considering I don't have a huge amount of expensive equipment or anything. Some fairly sort of basic LED lights and stuff and webcam. So I'm trying to sort of sort out what looks cool and what doesn't, because I don't have enough space in the room here to have a green screen. So I can't really do that. So I'm kind of limited to the kind of views that I have. But it's always trying to make the best of your circumstances, I suppose. Okay, you're working for the next 2 days. No, fair enough. Yeah, fair dues. But as I say, I'll be back to sort of, I think, more normal times next week anyway. So yeah, but we'll see. I'll definitely give you a shout, you know. But as I was saying, yeah, definitely. I mean, PvE it can be good fun by yourself, but obviously, like most things in Elite, everything is more fun if you do it with other people. I mean, even mining's kind of bearable with other people. That's it. My tolerance for mining is about an hour at a time, an hour and a half maybe at most, if I'm doing mining alone. If I'm doing it in a wing, you know, it's very easy to like let hours go by and do that. I think on the Mercury's Wings expedition a few months ago, we were actually doing like wing mining. There's like 20 people, each split into like wings of 4, and we were all sort of mining collectively in the same ring to refuel the carrier. And then we managed to do that, and you know, within a few hours, I didn't completely refuel the entire carrier, but it was like enough of a top up to get us where we were going. And had a bit of margin as well, so it was good, you know. I mean, the fact that we did that and it was the most fun mining I've ever had, because I've like mined with like 1 or 2 other people before, but never like a huge bunch of people all at the same time, you know. Because it looks quite spectacular with different colour lasers and people firing off all the different limpets as well. I mean, it looked kind of spectacular and cool in a way that just mining, you never thought mining would be that interesting, but it was really good. I mean, I really liked it. See how many plants I've actually got in this system. I didn't pay enough attention when I first came. I was paying too much attention to the chat, as you do. No, I'd rather pay attention to the chat anyway, because that's where you guys are, of course. And that's another thing that's slightly different to like talking to Discord. Because Discord, obviously, you talk having a conversation with someone else on the phone. It's a very similar way of doing things. You talk, they talk. It's more natural conversation. With the chat here, obviously, I keep looking at the game, and after the chat, it's this streaming like is not as simple as it looks because of stuff like that, you know. Yeah, Enterprise. Yeah, I've watched his stream a few times. He's pretty cool, actually. I mean, there's a lot of these quite big elite streamers who've got some seriously good channels. Yeah, I think most of them I've seen doing mining at some point. But yeah, there's a lot of very cool guys and girls as well out there doing some good stuff. You know, like Zero's High is quite good fun as well. Psyche and Psychic, 2 completely different people but with very similar names. They're cool as well. They're sort of regular elite streamers also, but yeah. Okay, right, I'm going to look at the Fss Scanner in a moment, once I've actually got my things together. Cool. See what the system has in store for us. Okay. Right. Say, those of you who've never seen Elite Dangerous before, this is the Fss Scanner, the sort of second level scanner, as it were, that can show you an entire system in detail. This is like, you move it about to see those lines are the orbital lines of various things in the system, various bodies. Zoom into a stronger sort of, I don't know if you can call it echo, not like a sonar in real life, but something similar. And then you see there's that sort of bar down there, which I'm now moving across. And you can then see there's different bodies like gas giants. The line moves across as I scan down different kinds of gas giants, through rocky bodies, high metal content worlds, and asteroids. Now, asteroids we're not going to pay attention to because they're not really worth anything in terms of scan value, and there's just loads of them out there anyway. But I'll start off with the biggest things in the system that aren't the stars, which are the gas giants. And you zoom in. If the system actually responds to me today, it would be nice. It's very slow at the moment. I don't know why. It's just gone. My frame rate's just gone down in game for some bizarre reason. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's not responding very rapidly right now. There's no obvious reason as to why. I'll let it do its thing. That's better. Okay, class 3 gas giant. You see on the right hand side of the various astronomical data. Activities recommending exploring and mining. Well, yeah, a lot of mining to be had usually. I mean, it depends on the exact kind of rings. But at the moment, I'm just scanning it for completest purposes. I'll scan the other gas giants first, actually. So you can do whatever way you want. You could scan all the other things in orbit of that gas giant, but at the moment I'm just scanning it by class of planet or body. This is another class 3 with a minimalist ring, if it has one at all. Looks like none at all, actually. I move on slightly to another gas giant somewhere in the system. I zoom in once more. Get some idea, say, of the astronomical information of this particular gas giant. In reality, and in game, gas giants are absolutely massive, massive planets. Okay, they're made mostly of gas, theoretically with like a hard, rocky core. But okay, we don't really completely know, but we think that that's the case. But yeah, they're just absolutely vast. Even a small gas giant is huge, I mean, way bigger than the Earth or any terrestrial solid world would be. So this is a class 2 gas giant, slightly different. Now I've found those, I'm going to move on to more numerous planets. Now rocky bodies are dead common, as ice worlds are dead common as well. They're the most common kind of planet types, moon kind of types, we just say bodies really, overall, within Elite. I mean, I think that's the case in real life. I say Elite always tries to mirror the physics of planetary formation as best we understand them. As he managed to predict a couple of systems, I think. TRAPPIST 1, it actually managed to more or less predict that system and its actual configuration, you know, before it was properly scanned in real life. So, yeah, well done, Elite. Yeah, I say these rocky bodies are pretty much 10 a penny, and they're still often landables that are worth visiting for fun, or for, you know, their particular elements that you want there, any kind of materials. Sometimes there can be quite good materials to be found on these worlds. I say it does depend totally on what you're looking for, but that's where sometimes you have to go out there and scan them individually with a detail scanner to get the full information about what kind of elements that you'll find there in detail. I think so that it does actually give you basic information on the elements there, but and also onto the landing sites too, potentially, of these places. This one has silica magma volcanism. It says atmosphere, water. I don't think this is a landable world by the looks of it. Well, at least not in Horizons anyway. Yeah, I do wonder actually if this is the kind of planet that in Odyssey would actually be a landable or not, because it doesn't seem to have that thick an atmosphere. Or does it? Which, no, it does have a thick atmosphere. I didn't actually see that surface pressure is near 224 times standard. It's like, well, yeah, that is a pretty thick atmosphere actually, so let's discount that completely. I didn't actually see that bit, so there you have it. That is a very thick atmosphere, way thicker than Earth. Like in real life, Venus has really, really high pressure and a supremely thick atmosphere. Clouds of sulfuric acid, things like that, you know. Covered with carbon dioxide as well. Runaway greenhouse effect in action. But yeah, a lot of these bodies are pretty easy to scan quickly and just move on, because most of them are fairly ordinary, have nothing particularly of interest. I mean, sometimes they do in terms of like they're like maybe close to a gas giant or another planet. They look really cool. Some of them are worthwhile to land on them because they look spectacular. They've got interesting mountains or canyons or some other feature. Or to say that you're drawn in by a material you want to collect. Yeah, this is another atmosphere. Oh, this is even higher pressure. This is 3,700 atmospheres. So, yeah, that's high pressure. Yeah, I was looking to make sure that it was actually I was reading not the decimal point in the wrong place, but it did say that. Yeah, you get the odd anomalous planet sometimes. That's sort of obviously a bug because the actual number of temperature or atmosphere etc. is just like way too high or too low. It's just not possible, or not likely anyway. Yeah, these kind of worlds look pretty cool. The sort of volcanic-looking worlds. Again, a pretty dense atmosphere. There's a lot of dense atmospheres in this system. There's probably some landables as well, but not as many. High metal content. More of them to be found, apparently. At least within this system. Yeah. The Fss Scanner is something of its own thing as well. B8, what was up to 0:10 AM? Not quite sure I follow. You can hear system scanners being completed. And then I'll leave that and move to the system map just to show what the system scanners revealed to us. Oh, that's true. Yeah, the Odyssey pressure level. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. It's a tenth of an atmosphere, 0.1 of an atmospheric pressure is the limit, I think, of these Odyssey landable atmospheres. So it's like, yeah, it's thin atmospheric worlds, tenuous atmospheric worlds as they call them, are going to be landables there. So yeah, a lot of these ones in this system we're looking at, right now are probably not going to be appropriate. There's obviously some good Horizons landables here as well. Like a lot of these are pretty like low gravity, conventional kind of Horizons worlds. Yeah, this other one here with like the insane atmospheres, like 200 atmospheres. Yeah, that's actually way outside of the level that Odyssey is going to tolerate. And yeah, this one isn't a landable, but it doesn't have an atmosphere. So I assume that would that be a landable also in Odyssey? It's a good question actually, because it's not landable in Horizons. And there's this other one over here with an even more insane atmosphere. Haggart's got 3G in the first place. 9 Earth masses. That's a lot. It's a lot indeed. So it's highly locked to the star. So one side just must be super heated up. Well, not super heated, but very, very hot indeed. Yeah. Atmospheric, surface pressure. 24,000 atmospheres. Yeah. A warm place to say the least. I might check that out actually. Yeah, let's fly by that because it looked like it might be an interesting place. Probably quite close to the star by the looks of it. It's not too far away. No, it's not too far. Obviously there's been this Odyssey sort of delay recently, not for the actual release itself, but of should we say what's the word for it? The sort of remapping of all these planetary surfaces, the regeneration of all these planetary surfaces, kind of like going down to Horizons as well, having the same technology, planetary tech that's in Odyssey in Horizons, except you can't obviously go to the tenuous atmospheric worlds in Horizons, or go out on foot, but Yeah, that bit has been put back to the autumn when consoles release, as most people probably know by now. But it's a little bit disappointing because for the last few months, Frontier Development have been saying in pretty much all their statements that Horizon will be getting the same sort of new lighting and planetary tech at the same time as Odyssey was released, just like, you know, the base game when Horizons came out was actually given a lot of the Horizons sort of upgrades to it as well, apart from you couldn't land on planets in the base game. But so yeah, but it's sort of interesting how they're staggering it. But then again, that just reinforces the opinion that a lot of people, and myself included, share, is that this Odyssey initial release, that's PC only, that's actually going to be basically a beta test. It's not called a beta test officially, but it is a beta test in all but name. And that seems to be, like, I don't know, most people's view of it at the moment, that this is, yeah, it's just an open beta test. They've just not called it that. Because obviously any then bugs, they work it out between here and the console release. But yeah, I like this view. This is a good one. They look pretty epic, these volcanic worlds. I don't think we're going to land on them anytime soon, but I look forward to the day that we can with the thick atmospheric worlds, not just Earth-likes and water worlds, but thick ammonia worlds as well. Again, the supposed home of Thargoids is on ammonia worlds, thick ammonia worlds. Some of the ones in the Odyssey Alpha, the landable atmospherics in those, a lot of those seem to have argon atmospheres. I know it's the one they were simulating, obviously, on the Alpha test. I think they were almost totally argon, weren't they? But yeah, it's all good, really. I mean, it's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, them sort of releasing things in this kind of staggered way, but this is the way it is now, and we'll just have to make the best of it, I suppose. I think a lot of people are sort of very disappointed by this. I mean, I can't deny I was disappointed as well. Especially sort of throughout slightly the scouting plans for the Apollo 15 expedition, but no, we've started down that road anyway, so it's not really a problem. We just have to adapt to the situation as we find it. But not everyone's going to have Horizons. Not everyone's going to have Odyssey, when Apollo 15 happens. So we're just assuming that, you know, a lot of people will be having that expedition on Horizons, and a certain proportion will have it on Odyssey, and try and cater for both, really. Oh, that's a good shot. I like that. See, it's pretty close to the star, this one. I mean, on the surface they're hellishly hot. Yeah, anyway, I better continue on to somewhere else of interest. The whole galaxy out there waiting to be discovered. And I'm going to help discover it. So, where will I take that out of Croydon next? Somewhere nearby that looks like it might be interesting. Now, this is a A-class blue-white star. I could go... Looks like a Class G here nearby. High chance of finding a water world or an Earth-like world there, so... There's the Class G down there, but I'll try and scan some of these nearby stars and see what happens. I want to try and do it in a close to a straight line as I can, and this is a little bit of a dog leg to the side, but I'll try and make it as straight as I can because I want to be moving closer to the core. Not the galactic core, but I mean the core systems of the bubble. The relaxing vortex of hyperspace, if it's to be called that, I suppose. Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it, BA? It'll look very different in Odyssey. The Horizons bit won't catch up for a while, but yeah, in Odyssey, it'll be the weird thing is like if you want to play with friends who don't have Odyssey, you'll have to switch to Horizons to do that, or the base game for that matter. Which is not a problem because most people have Horizons by now. I think I'm pretty sure they do anyway. But yeah, if you go to Odyssey for next week when it launches, it's going to be fun and games for a while. And apparently, say Frontier said that they've actually not told us everything that's going to be in the full release. Hopefully that means there's some new ships or some other interesting bits and pieces. But it'd be cool if we find some like Thargoid space stations or new ships from them, maybe new ships from us in the human side of it. Just good stuff really, I suppose. Apparently there's a lot more base types that didn't exist in the alpha either. And that could be quite intriguing. I mean, so much of it depends on like how much more sophisticated the actual full release is than the alpha, because apparently the alpha technology wasn't everything that the full game is going to be. Like the planetary tech was apparently like a halfway house between Horizons and Odyssey. How that works in practice, I don't know, but all we can do is go on what they're telling us. I mean, for this, like flying through space, that's probably the least changed. It's still changed a bit though, because as you say, like the lighting changes. I mean, space is definitely much blacker. I mean, this is not really truly black, but that really is. I mean, there's more of a sense of, being a void, I suppose, if it's truly black. Okay, new system, new discoveries. So we've got a few bodies to go at here, 26. So I'll wait till... Thing is with the Fss Scanner, you've got to move away from the star to some degree, otherwise it'll just blot out half the system for you, or a good portion of it, and you can't scan it properly. Okay, here we go. This is just personal sort of preference that I do. There's different ways of scanning this, but I tend to start with the biggest bodies in the system. In this case happens to be the classic gas giants. I can find out where they actually are. Awesome. Right. Yeah, there's definitely categories of classes of gas giant. Here we are. This is a class 1. I think is it class 4s that are quite rare? I think so. But yeah, there's another gas giant somewhere nearby. Okay, excellent. It's all good. Yeah, quite beige looking ones here. Quite ordinary looking gas giants. Not that pleasing to the eye, to be honest, these ones that I've seen so far. Some icy bodies. There's a terrible joke about frigid people here. I'm not into making dad jokes, I won't actually say that. Some people are, but it's not my thing. Yeah, it's not that long actually until Odyssey release. It's like 6 days now. So yeah, it's going to be next Wednesday then. So yeah, That's going to be an interesting day. I don't expect we're going to be able to play it till quite late in the day. I'm talking about like UTC sort of centric time here, or European centric time. Because, I mean, let's say that they put it out there at 12 midday. It'd take hours probably to get a good download, depending on what your system is like. Then again, they rarely put it out on time. When there's like a major update, it usually is a few hours behind, just because of the nature of what they're doing. It's usually on the same day, just, yeah, it's rarely exactly the right hour that they've predicted. So, I mean, some people take the entire day off just to, you know, get it before anybody else does, or be one of the first people to play it. Some people have got this like ridiculously high-speed internet that I'm mildly jealous of. I think, you know, when the alpha came out, it was like some people, like, within 20 minutes had downloaded it and were playing. I was thinking, at 20 minutes, wow, it took me about 4 hours to get it downloaded properly. Yeah, it really depends on the sort of where you are in the world and what sort of also the various internet works between yourself and the destination, isn't it? Yeah. I'm not necessarily even having server issues. I'm just saying that the fact that it's always delayed. You know what I mean? I can't remember a time that, you know, a rollout has happened at exactly the hour that they say it's going to. I'm not even touched on server issues, yeah. Just one of those days you gotta have patience. I mean, let me see. If it's Wednesday next week, it's not a streaming day for me anyway. I tend to do Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays these days. So if it's a Wednesday, then yeah, that's not too bad. I'll be able to download it and not a problem. I mean, that's the thing. If you're streaming on the same day as a major update, you either have to wait till it comes out and then stream it, or decide to, you know, just do a stream of something else. I mean, I suppose with the fact they're not updating Horizons at the same time as Odyssey means that they're going to probably let Horizon servers stay up during the whole Odyssey download process. Because it's got a separate client, which I think it does by the sounds of it, what they've been saying recently. Yeah, yesterday's statement that they made. They've got a separate client and everything, then it probably is a completely separate server system that they're using for Odyssey. So, yeah, fingers crossed they keep Horizons up during that time. So you just keep playing Horizons, really, if you're a stream. Depends on how much capacity you've got there. Depends on how good your system is as well. I mean, some people have got pretty good machines and good internet to the point that they can actually like play lots of things and be able to download these sort of huge programs at the same time without any sort of change or interruption. That looks quite an interesting sort of lighting, the metal content sort of world here. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting looking one. The lighting system has obviously changed a few times over the years. I think the last time it was updated was at least a couple of years ago, probably a lot more than that, 3-4 years ago maybe, within Horizons itself. I think the game may have frozen on me. No, it hasn't actually. I thought it had for a second. Yeah, that one does look interesting. Maybe I'll click on that. Yeah. Okay. These are just asteroid clusters, they don't really matter, so that's all good. And nothing else there. No, they're only asteroids. No signal sources this far out anyway. 100% done. Wonderful. One thing I didn't know till recently, actually the last week, was apparently the elite servers, the core ones for Europe and the world, are actually based in the Republic of Ireland. I always assumed they were in like the UK, probably, you know, somewhere fairly central, and then maybe somewhere else like Amsterdam, maybe on continental Europe, and then obviously you've got various regional clusters elsewhere. But no, apparently almost all the sort of main servers for Elite are in Ireland. Maybe they're just cheaper there. Yeah, it's interesting about the planets being terraformed, exactly. We're having to look at them. Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. How about... Yeah, so you can actually save yourself time and effort in sorting through different planets. Yeah, because you've got to scan them properly to make that work. I'm going to do this one, because this one looks quite dramatic. At least the lighting looks kind of dramatic. Sometimes it's an illusion, and it just looks cool, but the actual surface isn't actually that interesting. But sometimes it is. Sometimes the other way around, it doesn't look that interesting, and it's actually really good once you get down there. But we'll see. Okay, this is the detailed scanner. And yeah, this one, as you see on the right hand side, it requires approximately 7 probes as the target. Okay. I'll try and be as efficient as I can. Quite a substantial world then, if it's that many, because generally the smaller the world, the fewer probes you actually need. This is always the thing with any stream that you do. It's like, when I say as you can see, I'm just looking obviously my own screen and then not taking into account sometimes that the overlay for whatever is on top of it. But that's the thing. It's but those of you who know what Elite looks like, you can see. But I'll describe it anyway. It's the target of how many probes that you should need to scan the surface of the planet. Yeah. Okay. So maybe my array has not been as successful as I would have liked, but I need probably a couple more to do this properly. Yeah, the thing about stream, there's always something that the overlays are going to cover. So it's like trying to make sure that the chat or the overlays don't interfere, but it always interferes with something. So there's no way you can get away from it, unfortunately. But there you go. Damn, this has not been as successful as I'd have hoped. This is not good. Good. I used too many probes on that one. I prefer to do it as efficiently as I can, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Okay, cool. Let's move on to see what it has to show us on the system map. So after you scan, as I say, you get extra details. You get context within the system as well, because on the Fss scan you can't always tell what the context is, like what's the relation of the different bodies to each other. Because obviously two bodies could be one in front of the other, looks like they're nearby, but they're not, because of the angle of them. They could be literally like, hundreds of light seconds apart. Right, this one now, interesting. 18 geological sites, silicate magma volcanism, about 1 Earth gravity, tidally locked to the star. Maybe it's worth going down there. Definitely have a bit of an orbit around the place and see if there's any cool places down there. Yeah, geological site might be nice. If there's one in a cool place, I might do that. The other worlds are a bit more sort of... Well, that doesn't look too bad either, actually. Just the other one caught my eye visually. This one is still pretty interesting. I think anyone with geysers or volcanism, what have you, is worth some interest. They're all tidally locked as well. I mean, if you're organising a meetup on a planet for whatever event might be, for racing or for expeditions, these kind of tidally locked worlds are almost ideal, because the fact that if you scout a place in advance, it should still be facing the star, when you come back. It doesn't always work 100%, but it works most of the time. Because if it's tidally locked, it should be facing the sun at all times, so your site should be in daylight. Which for events is kind of ideal. You can do events in the dark using only lights or night vision, but it's not quite the same. I mean, once in a while it's okay to have night events, but I think most people prefer having it in like planetary daytime. This one's got interesting colorations as well. Yeah, they're all tidy locked. Sometimes you get that in a system. There's like a sort of theme running throughout it. Lots of tidal locking. Yeah. No, totally be. You know, it's the way that streaming is. It's yeah, it's just it's a matter of choice really, of actually arranging things in the least disruptive possible way. Then again, that's where each streamer seems to have a different approach to it, and rightly so. You know, I'd rather people do their own thing, be individualistic and different. Last thing I want is everyone have streams being uniform. That would be kind of a nightmare. See, this is a world that actually has got lots of interesting coloration of it, but it is actually quite flat. It doesn't look actually that it's got much in the way of mountains or canyons. This is the downside of larger worlds. I'm talking about like over half a G really, like 0.5 G upwards. Tend to be much flatter. Just gravity link just compresses it. All the flatter they are, the less likely you are to find any kind of mountains or canyons or any terrain changes in the terrain really, you know. I mean, you get some discoloration there, changes in colour, but it does actually look pretty flat because there's almost no change on the horizon. On a smaller world, you would see like mountain ranges pop up at the horizon. And there are craters here. That's about as big as I think you're going to get in terms of like planetary, you know, any kind of undulation of the terrain. See, there's one coming up on the right here. It looks like a series of craters. So maybe this world isn't as interesting as I thought, but that's the thing I remember because I think in Mercury's Wings expedition, a few people are sort of asking, and the completely fair question is like, why do we always tend to go to like low gravity worlds? Just because they're more interesting, because there are bigger mountains, deeper canyons, just kind of more things of interest. And these larger worlds, because they're flatter, tend to have less interest. I mean, outside of craters and some small hills, they don't really have that much going on. So one limitation I found in Odyssey Alpha that I hope isn't the case throughout obviously the whole of Odyssey proper is that I didn't find a single like proper mountain range. I found something I consider to be like a small mountain or maybe a small mountain range. It was all right, but there's just only one of them that I found. I found lots of like hills everywhere, but not really mountains compared to Horizons particularly. Oh, this is pretty cool. I mean, the way the place looks anyway, you know, is pretty cool. And sometimes you can obviously have landing zones that for expeditions that are just places that look cool, you know. Yeah, they happen to have maybe some local volcanism or geysers or whatever. Geysers, however you want to pronounce it, but yeah, something like that. It would be good. It would be good to sort of see more variety, and so apparently they said it's a more realistic sort of terrain generation or more nuanced terrain generation with Odyssey, but you say we'll have to see what the final product looks like in about 6 days. You can tell there's going to be like a huge build-up because I remember a lot of streamers were doing like countdown to Odyssey Alpha release and things like that, and there are days to go in their stream titles. Again, this is going to be even bigger probably for the actual release. And yeah, I understand the excitement, definitely. I think the recent announcement about the delay for the Horizon sort of spillover technology or backdating to Horizons is actually taking a certain amount of that excitement away for a lot of people. I mean, for me it's toned it down a little bit, but I'm still kind of interested and I'm still very much going to be a part of investigating the new era, really. I mean, I'm just crossing my fingers we don't have a series of bugs that are just like game-breaking bugs. There are going to be some bugs, of course. That's just going to comes with the territory. You can't really have a major update without having some of them. That's just it just comes with the territory, doesn't it? But hopefully, fingers crossed, not game-breaking ones. Yeah, this one doesn't look bad, but it is rather flat still, isn't it? It's not the greatest of places. It's okay though. Yeah, I probably won't land on that. I'll leave it to some other person wants to find that in Elite's history. To the system map. Yeah, this system is previously undiscovered. I'll get a first discovery for the star and that planet, no doubt. There's some other stuff that could be interesting potentially, but there's nothing truly significant to go out of my way for right now. Click on the Ori map just in case there is something peculiar or interesting. Looks quite very circular sort of orbits here. Yeah, fairly standard stuff really. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary that I can tell anyway. But this is the thing, I think as Obsidian Ant once pointed out quite correctly, that one of the amazing things about Elite Dangerous has always been you can explore, go somewhere that no one in the game world has ever been to and may never go to ever again because the galaxy is that big. Especially if it's far away from the bubble. Okay, to the Galactic Map now. Now that I've checked out a little bit of systems nearby, I'm going to go zoom out and see what else is going on somewhere near the galactic center there. But yeah, back to the bubble is not far, about 7,000 light years, I think. Yeah, let's go to one of these systems. I might buckyball a good portion of this, not the whole thing, but then I'll stop at certain stages and explore again. But yeah, I want to get a bit of a move on if I can. I've got a ship at Pomesh. Yeah, that's cool. From the other week. Yeah, I intended to stream already on Tuesday this week, but real life's got in the way and that didn't happen. So it's sort of better to keep the quality up than just force a stream for the sake. If I'd have streamed that day, I'd have been quite tired and it'd have been quite late, and it'd have been less satisfying, I think. I wonder why it says I've got any ships at Shinarati Desra. I usually have a whole bunch stored there. That's weird. I didn't move them all to Pomesh. Oh well. Still, I'll fly via Shinarati Desra anyway. Actually, what am I thinking? That's my other account. This is the only thing with having more than one account. You get confused sometimes as to what you were doing, where. I was thinking that I usually have more ships parked at Founders World. I'm thinking, this is the other account. You don't usually have that many ships parked at Founders World. A bunch of parked at Pomesh, but not here. How many jumps to Founders World? 149, not too bad. And this has got a 50 light year range, this ship anyway, so it doesn't concern me particularly. It's a good range to have. I'd say that's like a good number for exploration generally. It's far enough you can hit most systems, and yeah, it's not bad. It's functional and fairly easy to attain as well. This is always the thing that I find slightly irritating as well, is that if you go into a planet you've just scanned it, it'll keep it, obviously in its analysis mode, but then you'll just see the sort of analysis overlay, that sort of bluey green sort of overlay to a planet, and you'll not see the actual search policy. You have to switch to combat mode to be able to see it, visually as it is, and rather than the sort of analysis overlay. which is slightly annoying because then you have to switch back to analysis. You want to start scanning other things in different systems, like here. Ooh, cool. Formidine Rift, eh, BA? That's nice. I haven't been there for a while. You're flying in a 44 light year Type 10. Yeah, the Rift is an interesting place, no doubt about that. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. I mean, just lore-wise alone, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. There's some few distant space stations out there too. A few DSSA carriers. Yeah, you've got a lot of cool things out there. You've also got some. You've got the end of the Formidine Rift mystery as well, where the Zurara is. I take it you'll be heading to the Zurara on this trip, because a lot of people do. That's often like the end point for a lot of trips to the Formidine. Anyone who's never been to the Formidine Rift, I would recommend it. Because apart from like the Formidine Rift mystery is like one of the big sort of early to middling elite sort of mysteries. It was once like the biggest mystery in the game. And yeah, it was genuinely intriguing for a very long time. And like the Zurara is, I don't want to give it away if you don't ever read it, but it's like the end point of that mystery, and it's an abandoned ship basically, but it's one that has been abandoned in relatively recent times. And it's spooky, I will say that much. Well worth a visit. Again, weirdly enough, even if you've got good range, not the easiest place necessarily to visit, because obviously travelling between the arms is like, I once actually did it in a 50 light year DBX, and even then, sometimes you go slightly off or slightly off plane between the arms, you can actually find yourself in trouble fairly quickly because of like the maze of systems there. And the way that you sort of jump in and out, and it can become problematic quite quickly if you're not careful. That's why it's good to have a good amount of jumponium materials on you, just in case you do run into a dead end and you do run into trouble. I think so for any explorer, that's a good bit of advice. Keep jumponium materials on you so that you can do these boosted FSD jumps. Like if you get 100% boost, you can obviously double your range and get to 100 light year range, and that'll take you out of most trouble spots. But yeah, 100% the Zurara is one of the things I'd put that in my top 10 recommended places to go in the game, actually. Because it's like a lot of the mega ships that I visited on this stream, or sort of like just big generation ships or mega ships, any of the sort of mystery type ships. I think the Zurara is probably my favourite. Because it's not just what it is and what it means, like the end point of the Formidine Rift mystery. It's also the actual ship itself and everything surrounding it. But I won't give the whole story away. It's best people find out for themselves. Or I might fly out on the stream to do it. Obviously, I'll be able to find out for himself before I do that. So, yeah, that's probably the best thing. I won't go there just yet. Let you have your fun first. There was a whole point, in the early years of Elite, that there were whole groups of people called the Formidine Rifters, who were like groups of people who were like mystery hunters dedicated to solving the mystery of the Rift. Because for a long time, it was one of those things that was not as bad as Raxlet. It's not as ill-defined as Raxlet. No one actually knows what Raxlet even is, let alone where to find it. So you could see it, and you might never know what you were looking at. But with, I think, the Formidine Rift mystery, it was not as nebulous as that, but kind of close. We're obviously looking for something anomalous. But yeah, Raxler's even more anomalous than that, arguably. I mean, this is the thing about people always claim till they've found Raxler, is like almost certainly never going to be the case, because if it had been found, I think Frontier would actually make a public statement about it as well, saying that such a commander is the first to find it. Because, it's such a big deal. And also, but what even is Raxler? It's always the premier question. Is it a planet? Is it a station with some kind of portal on it? Is it like a ruined ship with an end of a mystery like the Zurara. It's like no one actually knows. I mean, there's obviously there's many theories as there are people who are interested in it, really. But yeah, apparently it is in game. I mean, the most solid bit of information we ever had about Raxler is that Drew Wagar, the renowned elite law specialist and elite author as well, of a couple of very good Elite Dangerous books, actually talked to David Braben about this and asked him directly, is Raxler in the game? Braben said yes, but he wasn't giving any more away than that. And yeah, I believe him when he says it is in the game somewhere. Doesn't mean it's easily accessible. But then again, what is it? I mean, it would be really terrible if, anyone, myself included, had actually gone by it on an exploration run somewhere and just not known that they had, because they were either buckyballing it or they were right looking at it. They didn't know what they were looking at. Because how do you know unless you know what you're looking for? But yeah. I think I actually asked Drew Wagar in person about the whole conversation with Braben, so I've pretty much, he told me everything that he knew, so yeah, that's the extent of the public information from Frontier about what Raxlar actually is. I suspect even in Frontier only like a handful of people actually know either, so they're deliberately keeping it to themselves. I mean, Frontier does leak from time to time various information, but that's probably deliberately kept on a few need-to-know basis kind of circle with a small number of people as possible. That was one of the key parts, getting back to what we were saying earlier about conspiracy theories. One of the litmus tests for... I'm not saying that conspiracy theories are never completely true. Once in a blue moon, like maybe 5% of the time or less than that, there's some truth to a conspiracy theory. It might be exaggeration, but there's some element of truth to it. But the thing is, the litmus test for conspiracy theories is often how many people would have to know about this, or probably would know about such a thing, whatever it is, to be true or to happen. And in most cases, it's usually a lot of people. And that many people can't keep quiet for many, many years or decades at a time. So, But I'm assuming in the case of the Raxler mystery, it's something that's probably only very few people know. So it's easy to keep a secret. Let's say if only 3 people in the world know it, and they all work together, and they've got a good collective reason for keeping it quiet, then, it's more likely to keep quiet. That's interesting BA about Raxler. It is an interesting point. It's like in some ways it is almost better that it never gets found. It remains the eternal mystery. I mean, if it is, let's assume for a moment it's something in a system. Let's say, for argument's sake, Raxler is a planet. Let's say it's an Earth-like world that, whatever it might be. And it exists somewhere like randomly in the galaxy almost. I mean, it might never be discovered, because there's like 0.1% of all systems in the galaxy have been discovered so far, and the game's been out, a long time now. It's 7 years it's been out, coming up to 7 years. And so at that rate, I mean, it could be in an obscure system in a distant part of the galaxy that not many people go through and never be found. It's entirely possible that it will never be found. It's one of those things like on the last day that the Frontier servers close in 15 years or something, they're saying, haha, this is where it was and this is what it was. Or but even then it'd be kind of spoiling the mystery somewhat. Yeah, I suspect you're right. It will remain an eternal mystery, actually. I think every now and then you do hear of people becoming Raxlar hunters, people going out on expedition trips looking for it. But it's such a broad thing. I mean, I once thought about doing that, but then I realised, that's not a good idea, because you don't know what you're looking for. So how do you know where to start looking for it if you don't know what it is? And how would you know when you found it? So it's like, it's almost pointless to look for it unless you've got some extra clue or some new bit of information turns up. It's kind of futile to even try, as in like exploring the galaxy for it, you know. No, it's definitely it's the biggest unsolved mystery, and it's probably good that it's never solved. I expect there's lots of other things that Frontier are going to put out there for, some Thargoid related mysteries, probably some Guardian ones they're going to throw in future, I bet. And Thargoid one's an ongoing thing, because obviously the Thargoid is supposed to be a living alien species that not much is known about, so it's always a play for there. The Guardians is a bit more limited just because of the fact they are an extinct species, and therefore by their very nature can't do anything new. We've just got relics and ruins and everything of them to try and work out things about them. Obviously they don't like the Thargoids very much. Thargoids don't like them because they react badly to Guardian technology. Past conflict between them, no doubt. In some ways, I'm one of these people who actually I like the Thargoid attacks on the bubble that have happened in the past, but it's my mind. It's not really been enough. I was one of these people, like a lot of people I know, to be fair, who thought that like half the bubble should be ransacked by the Thargoids, or like whole systems laid waste, and like really sort of hardcore stuff. That's a good question, BE8, about are we sure any of the Guardians are left? I mean, that's a good point. I mean, it could be just like in this area of space, there are no surviving Guardians. They all died out in this area of space. Somewhere else, they escaped the AI or something like that. But obviously, just as far as we know, we think that they were wiped out according to what we found. But yeah, you never know. They could be waiting somewhere. Small colonies still surviving somewhere out there. That would be really sort of somewhat ironic if the Thargoids really were moving through human space to fight a war against someone distant, like the Guardians, somewhere else in the galaxy. The Guardians were still there, but they had moved somewhere else, like away from the Thargoids. But there was like conflict was happening, and the Thargoids were acting against us for whatever reason as well. I mean, it's an open question about the Guardians, really. But then again, it's just as far as we know, isn't it, based on what we found to date. Same with the Thargoids. It's like all this stuff is an extrapolations based upon what we know, and which is even more limited than the Guardians. But then again, that makes sense, doesn't it, if the Thargoids are much more alien than the Guardians. Because obviously with the Thargoids, there's no form of like communication or translation as far as we're aware. I mean, technically back in Elite lore there was sort of, alien language translator that was invented. But they say that's like back in the third game. They say that was invented before the third game in the lore of the third game, but yeah. But the law of Elite Dangerous seems to have been like tidied up slightly, and they allude to the fact that there isn't any communication between the Thargoids and the human race. But we can find, communications sort of like left over from the Guardians that we can decipher. I think another change that is sort of subtle but not really not talked about a huge amount with the Odyssey Alpha was this part of the game changing the whole jump sequence and the sort of witch space lights, as it were, the witch space sort of animation has definitely changed. I think it's better myself. It seems sort of more intricate and but more subtle at the same time. I really liked it. It's always good to let the thing cool down, the FSD cool down, before you actually jump. I mean, not as much as I'm doing now, but I usually don't tend to jump if I'm higher than any about like 55 degrees, really. So it's 55%, sorry, not 55 degrees of heat. Because obviously if you're trying to do a long expedition, you want to try and preserve your power plant as best you can, and your FSD drive too. That's interesting. Yeah. So high field of view, the edges look kind of empty on the hyperspace animation. Okay, I must admit I haven't set it to that, so I had no idea. But I wonder if that's just the state of the play in beta, or is it some kind of other problem they've yet to solve? Sorry, alpha, not beta. Has anyone else had this problem with the hyperspace animation in Odyssey? The maximum the game can set is 60. Yeah, okay. Suppose that makes sense why it would have a problem if you're trying to generate something it's not designed to. Well, this is the other thing about, I suppose, the sheer number with PCs, or the sheer number of different combinations of screen and graphics chips that you've actually got. Obviously, for a developer, that could potentially be a nightmare, but you've obviously got fairly sort of strong general settings that you can use. But obviously, the interaction between that and the various components elsewhere in a PC does tend to vary quite a bit. But this is always the way, is like, you know, troubleshooting, especially technological and for PCs, is actually for any sort of software development is potentially much more complex than it is for consoles, because in fact you don't have homogeneous hardware like you do on a console. Consoles are all the same, at the same standard, so that's kind of, you know, if you have a bug on one, you know it's going to be a bug on all. But with a PC, something could be buggy on one thing because it reacts badly to a particular hardware standard or setup, and it just doesn't on other PCs. And yeah, PCs often require more work to make it work across the board, I suppose. Because PC is just like it's a standard, but it's quite a broad standard. You know, I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing to say, I know, but yeah. I actually had a modern console in the last few generations. The most modern console I've got is actually a PS3. So it's not like the last couple of generations. So I've not played Elite on a console or anything, I've just played on PC alone. But I'm definitely one of these people who's very much for the cross-play and integration of all the console players across Elite, you know, all the different platforms playing with PCs in real time wherever possible. I mean, we always say this every time there's an expedition. It would be wonderful to have cross-play, and there would be a need for having separate, you know, PC and Xbox and PS4, PS5 wings as well, because that end up happening because you can't cross-play between the different platforms. You end up having to have, you know, a different sort of organizer, leader on one in an expedition and another one on another, and obviously PC, because there's more people of them, you often end up multiple sort of instance leaders. But yeah, it would be so much easier to manage as well, and so much more fun for everyone, I think, having everyone together. Obviously, I mean, technically speaking, it can be done relatively straightforwardly, but it's just, whatever reason, it's never been a priority of Frontier to have it. For years, I know they said they were held back by Microsoft and by Sony for not being able to do crossplay on them. But I think those limitations have all been sort of relaxed now, and it's not all the barriers that used to exist technologically, and no longer exist. And it's just whether not just Frontier, but any developer wants to actually put it out there or not, wants to engineer crossplay into their games. Yeah, I think it's probably a matter of time before they do actually cross-play all of Elite. But again, it's like a lot of things in Elite. It's these things are where it's wanted, and they're soon TM, you know, work in progress. This is typical of rounding a larger star. You take so much longer to get it done, and to let the system cool down enough to jump easily. Very itchy nose today for some reason. No idea why. Maybe it's pollen or something. Excuse me. I do wonder also how with Odyssey the optimization is going to go. Because obviously, I mean, well, not obviously, there should be some improvement in it between the last alpha phase, phase 4, and release. I hope it's good enough. No doubt they'll improve it further as time goes by, as the weeks and months go on. But yeah, I'm hoping for a fair burst of improvement, especially for planetary stuff. I mean, say the space stuff, there was very little, if any, difference between Horizons in terms of performance. I'm talking about here, in terms of frame rates, etc., and details, etc., and general quality of the space sort of part of the game was very similar to Horizons. Yeah, lighting changes, but overall it's pretty much the same kind of stuff. Little differences here and there, but generally solid. And for me, that worked pretty decently. The planetary stuff, it worked well when there was like only surfaces there, or there was nothing too complicated going on. Like there wasn't a planetary base, it would actually be, the performance would be reasonable, and you're out on foot. But at a planetary base, it was a bit slow and a bit silly, really, and there were too many issues. So that's why I kind of didn't really push the FPS part of the game, because I thought, well, it's slow just walking around for me, so I don't want to actually try combat on this until I can actually get a good frame rate, and it sort of doesn't, you know, slow down too much and just or get stuck at times. It just gets irritating, so it's best not just to leave it until the optimization improves. Oh cool, you did some res combat, BA. Oh yeah. Okay, how did you like the drops? Because obviously there are people who haven't played the alpha. There's these drop ships that come along. You can sign up to do combat on foot, and you basically go to fight for somebody, and then what happens is a vulture drop ship will literally take you and physically like drop you into the war zone. It's kind of funny, really. It's like a parachutist and a paratrooper in real life, or someone jumping out of a helicopter into combat. Oh, I see what you mean. Frame rate drops, yeah. But then again, if you're doing the physical drops, the frame rate might drop even further. No pun intended. Yeah. That's interesting. So for res combat, it definitely dropped for you. Now, for a second when you said res combat, I thought you meant like on-foot combat zones, because that's definitely a thing there. But yeah, res combat. I didn't actually try the combat zones or res combat in alpha. I was just mostly flying around and inspecting things as an explorer would do normally. I don't think I was in any significant combat. I think it was like there was like one spacecraft trying to interdict me, and I ended up destroying that one, and that was the only combat I really did. It was like one-on-one, so it wasn't a big deal. I didn't notice much of a frame rate difference for that, but that's interesting if, yeah, you had res combat and it slowed down. Because it shouldn't be too hard for the system to do that. So that's a little bit concerning, but again, it's like, this is like none of us really know outside of Frontier Developments itself. Like, what stage of evolution is this alpha actually from? How long ago was this like their newest cutting edge build, as it were? Is this like a build from like potentially 4 months ago? It could be. It could well be one that's, it could be like, could have been completely cutting edge, but it's probably not, because how else would they be able to move even to a beta form so quickly if that was actually the best they could do at that point? I'm assuming because of the time difference, only a few weeks after alpha, that their newest builds must be a lot better than that, and that the alpha we were given was essentially several months old. Because it doesn't look like they actually changed it all that much. When they went through the different phases where they added stuff in, but they didn't actually change the actual content very much. There were slight tweaks here or there to optimization and things, but the actual core content didn't really change. So yeah, that's why I'm sort of like extrapolating this into thinking that the build must have been a little bit older. And it could well have been something like a test build that they were using a few months previously. Because in the past, I think because I wasn't originally anything like a Kickstarter or an early back to Elite Dangerous. Well, I was in a sort of mental sense, in a spiritual sense almost, but not in a financial sense, a backer. So, but those people who were, I think, obviously went through the whole alpha and beta phase before the game came out, and then there was a gamma phase just before launch, and then it launched, and that was the full game. And obviously then Horizons came out after. Horizons had the beta phase, which I was part of, because I pre-ordered Horizons before it came out, so I was a part of the beta sort of phase for that. Very similar to the alpha in this, for Odyssey, that you basically bought a beta license with a pre-order for Horizons, and then you played that. And yeah, I had a lot of problems with that, way more than I had even with the alpha for Odyssey. I mean, it barely worked at all for me. It would I played for 5 minutes and it would crash. So there were more fundamental problems with that. But I mean, that early Horizons was horrifically buggy. It had even more problems than the alpha actually had for Odyssey, even though it was obviously being a beta. It was more of a complete game. So it's the whole spectrum of possibilities that will happen. I'm just hoping that it's going to be in a pretty decent state, and that it'll be at least kind of fairly playable. I'm okay with a certain amount of bugs being there. Because I'm a realist, I don't expect perfection first time out. But as long as I can play most of it fairly reliably, without too much of a frame rate problem, I think that would be a good baseline. I don't know if it's going to be the case or not, because knowing bugs, it's often one particular part of the game that it's in, these series of bugs, and then they get fixed eventually. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still buckyballing at the moment, aren't I? I think I'm still a fair way out. But at the moment, I'm just trying to get back to the bubble more than anything else. I mean, I'll get a certain amount of money for the odd bit of scanning that I've been doing, and a certain amount I'll get, obviously, for all the system scans, the sort of the honking on the Discovery Scanner. But I'm intending to go back to the bubble for this account and do some passenger missions and some mining to get a good amount of money. And mainly to keep the carrier alive and the DSS one on the other side of the galaxy. So that's my intention for this account anyway. This is Gamma Ray, my sort of backup alt account. Backup and alt account, I should say, really. It's got one elite. I think it's Elite Exploration. Or have I got Elite Trade with this as well? Yeah, I've got Elite Trade too, so that's pretty cool. See, my combat rank on this other account is pretty poor. It's Novice. Hardly any combat done at all. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty much sort of trade and exploration only account. I've done almost no combat whatsoever with this. And greetings to anyone who's joined the stream in the meantime. I'm Commander Yannick, and here I am in the space madness, buckyballing exploration sort of phase of Elite, where we're going through horizons and having some fun at it as well. Come say hi in the chat. It's okay to lurk, but it's more fun if you chat. Like the stream, please click on the follow. Follows are free and it helps the channel no end. Thank you for everyone who's followed so far. Okay, I will probably have to wind the stream up in the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes probably. But I will be back on stream tomorrow morning. I think it will be, yeah, 0700 I'm aiming to do it. But I say I am sort of restricted only the fact that I have to be vaccinated tomorrow. So that's it's something good at least. Yeah. Something to be and no one ever looks forward to having needles put in their arm, unless they're a masochist, of course, and they actually enjoy pain. But I'm not one of those people. I don't think most people are, to be fair. But it's for a good reason. I'm just happy it's available, you know. It seems like an eon ago that the pandemic was raging and there was no vaccine, and it was just like a research project that was ongoing. It seems like a very long time ago now. I mean, the last like year or so seems to have been like several years going to boil down into one, but I think a lot of people feel that way. Maybe most people feel that way from the conversations I have with people, but yeah. It's been interesting, is that allegedly there's a Chinese proverb that says, may you live in interesting time, but some people say that there's no such proverb, that it was made up by an English diplomat. If anyone is actually of Chinese descent or does know Chinese or the Chinese folklore or culture very well, do let us know in the chat if that's actually true or not. Whether that is genuinely a Chinese proverb, or was it made up by an English ambassador, I think, of some kind in the 1800s, allegedly. I have no idea, but I have to look at more detail into that. It's the kind of thing that the program QI would all be about. For those of you who maybe have never seen it, it's like a BBC show that ran for years with the Stephen Fry in it. And most people know who Stephen Fry is. He's like an international legend, pretty much. So, you know, it's like a sort of high-end and slightly odd quiz program where people found out they got points for being things that were quite interesting, hence QI, rather than necessarily for the best answers or even the right answer, but for being interesting. And it's genuinely a great program because it's kind of fun but quite sort of informative at the same time. Programs like that are always good, but yeah, this one was particularly cool. It's still running, but Stephen Fry is not the host for it anymore. Okay, I don't think I'll get back to the bubble during this stream at this rate. To be fair, I didn't think I would anyway, but it's always good to have a target and something to do very specifically. I think some people do completely improv their entire streams, but I mean, I do usually have some particular overview or target or something I wish to see or wish to talk about. I mean, some people go into sort of great detail and have these sorts of, very specific sort of things that they do. It depends what the game you're doing, I suppose. I mean, Elite is, by its very nature, especially exploration, is quite free form anyway. So I have to sort of adapt to what comes up. But yeah, I mean, streaming definitely is an art, and it's one that I'm fairly new to. Public events, no, as in like in-game events, I mean, I'm very used to, but streaming, it's a sort of different art. There is definitely skills in common, but something that I am kind of still learning, really. do have a few streamer friends as well who have been doing this for a while, and some of them are really good at it, to be honest. There's some very good elite streamers out there. I've seen streamers for some other games as well who are sort of decent, but I think the elite ones, yeah, I think just for the nature of elite, you just have to be sort of quite prepared and quite knowledgeable anyway. Oh, apparently I'm changing Galactic Region into the Outer Orion Spur now, so that's cool. That means I'm obviously the Outer Orion Spur is the part of the galaxy that the bubble was in, so I'm closing in on the bubble definitely. Definitely play around with the lighting more than I have. Hey Derek Jones, how's it going? I got a new codec scan. No idea what it's for. Maybe a star or something. I think the codec doesn't always open as it's supposed to. I'll just have to do it manually, but yeah. I don't really use the codecs that much. I'm just, once in a while I'll look at it because they'll tell me, oh, have you discovered something? It's like, really? Oh, okay. What is it I supposedly discovered? Yeah, I'm not doing badly actually, thanks Derek. It's I've had a pretty good stream so far. Getting vaccinated tomorrow, that's another sort of big thing really, I suppose. Yeah, just having a fairly sort of steady stream. This is actually the first stream this week I'm doing because I had to sort of abandon a one earlier on in the week due to real life, but yeah, it's the first one I've done since the big charity stream last Friday, so it's going alright actually. I'm just ambling my way back to the bubble in my alternate account. Doing some exploration on the side, mostly buckyballing, but stopping to view the planets and smell the flowers from time to time. The strange space flowers that look very alien. Actually, that's what's cool about some of the new Odyssey stuff. Some of the plants in there look genuinely quite cool in the way that they're modelled, you know? Look nice and detailed and sort of suitably sort of strange as well. More things like that would be good. Definitely. It's interesting the way the different streamers also approach their streams, because obviously some of the slower games, like strategy games, it's easier to people to like talk to camera and have like a sort of conversation like it was a TV program, or you know, sort of more like personal stream like that. But I think for Elite or anything that requires a certain amount of attention, that's obviously not going to be the case. It's more having a sort of, yeah, it's sort of less to camera, as it were. No, it is good news, definitely, Derek. Thanks. It's have you got yours yet, vaccination-wise? I mean. Check the system out, something interesting. I don't think there was, but you never know. I think there may have actually just been a sole star in the system. Crack on. Yeah, I'm not too far away from the bubble. I'm probably say about 6,000 light years away at the moment, something of that order. So I'm not really in deep, deep space. I am technically in deep space, but it's not that far out. No, I mean, Derek, that's quite a normal thing a lot of people, I think, are having. Uh, yeah, that obviously, if you're working much of the time, it's kind of difficult to find the right slots. Especially if people, if you've got like fairly sort of standard hour, office job particularly. It's because obviously people are going to want to get vaccinated outside of those hours, and you do too. So yeah, but yeah, that's always the thing, isn't it? It's like I think a lot of people are often starting to like take like a day or two off anyway after being vaccinated from their holiday sort of allowance, just to make sure that they don't have any sort of, you know, side effects or just feeling kind of really sort of, kind of bad. A lot of people have. It's not uncommon to feel a bit odd for a little while after. I think it does seem to depend on the person and exactly which vaccine they're being given. Some seem to have fewer issues than others. But I just cross my fingers and hope we all get it as quickly as we possibly can. It does seem to be sort of gradually getting through to most people, at least in Europe, and I think in North America as well. It seems to be going very well. Outside of that, my knowledge isn't too great on how the vaccine programs are sort of proceeding. So running that camera angle makes me look like my eyes closed when I haven't. I'll work it out. Accidental comedy stream. Yeah, there's some fairly unexciting systems I've hit so far. Apart from the ones that I did go and scan some planets quite close up, they were pretty cool. Not outstanding, but just generally pretty cool. Okay. I think I will probably have to leave it there. 111, that's a good point. To leave it alone. Okay. That's a good question, actually. Interesting finds. Nothing really out of the ordinary so far. Just some fairly sort of solid high metal content worlds. Nothing particularly sort of special, and a few sort of interesting, slightly unusual classes of gas giant. But yeah, no sort of water worlds or Earth-like worlds or anything particular to write home about. But yeah, to be fair, I haven't gone to like the detail scan of that many systems. Just a handful, really. But it's always nice to see systems that don't have someone else's name on it, so you can at least claim their discovery. Because I think if a system's boring, you can get something out of it by being the first one to be there and to have scanned it. So that's always a bonus. I don't always scan every single planet, especially in a system that looks like there's lots of bodies in there, and a lot of them are quite sort of mundane. I'll let somebody else do it if they want to in future, but yeah, we'll see. You see now. See, this is the carrier. This is interesting that you can actually remote manage carriers these days. See, it's sitting where it is. Got a fair amount of money for its upkeep. But Yeah, it's a lot per week still. Obviously, that won't go down to like to zero anytime soon. But the very fact that you can actually like manage to carry us right, I don't think anyone has probably been here since I last looked. I don't think anyone's bought anything in terms of outfitting. Doesn't look like it. Bought any ships? Do I want to refill stock of a distant place like that? Possibly. Yeah, it's only 1 million, so yeah. Go on, refill them. Anyway. Yeah, it's got a full load of tricking, though it's not moving anywhere. It's literally not moving anywhere at all. It's never going to move again. Yeah, see, it's literally the other side of the galaxy. I'll show you on the map. Out of curiosity. It's right in the far northwest. One of the furthest DSSA carriers away, actually, outside of the ones at Beagle Point. Yeah, there it is, Shepherd Stream DSSA. This particular system is referred to by EDSM as Brothers and Sisters of the Void. So by Commander Pharaoh. It's a very sort of potent system, but yeah. Actually, let's go to the distant Trocare system. However, one wishes to pronounce that. See, its location is right on the edge, right the far side of the galaxy. See, back where the cursor is. That's where I am at the moment, near the bubble. It's literally like completely the edge, virtually, of the galaxy in the far corner. I zoom out and go back. See, I'll go down to here, the middle of the cursor. That's Colonia, Sagittarius A star at the galactic center. The bubble in the middle, and I'm off to the side here. So it literally is like. There are a couple of other DSA carriers around the edges here in these different sort of sectors, but yeah, it's definitely one of the most distant of DSSA carriers from the bubble. But yeah, I mean, if 2 or 3 people have visited it in time since I left it, that will have been good work, actually. Still, it is what it is. Okay, I think I have to. I see we've got one more. Ooh, cool. Raven Otter is raiding with a party of 3. Thank you, Commander Raven Otter, and welcome to the stream. Anyone else who's here as well on the raiding party? Thank you very much. It's always lovely to see you. I am Commander Yannick, and this is the Space Madness Exploration stream. I will continue for slightly longer now, I think, but yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Commander Raven Otter. That's a good name as well, actually. I like that. It's always good to pass from stream to stream like that, in ED particularly. 07 to you as well, Commander. And yeah, welcome to stream anyone who's joining from the raiding party. It's always good to see other elite players. And yeah, we're here to have sort of exploration fun at the moment. Just sort of casually sort of buckyballing and doing the odd bit of planetary scanning on the way. We're sort of somewhere to the east of the bubble at the moment. In deep space, but not like really deep space. About 6,000 light years to the east. And yeah, being exploration, it can drive you mad if you're not careful. But we're hitting all these interesting systems wherever we possibly can. Oh, that's cool. It's always good to hear people getting back into the game. Tell me, has the Odyssey update brought you back, or is it just something that you were going to come back for anyway? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think this thing is the elite is like a lot of people get themselves burnt out at some point, and it's pretty common. It's totally understandable if people take a break from it, but I think most people kind of get drawn back not just by elite itself, but by the community. I mean, the community. This game is like the best out of any game I've ever seen, and that's one of the things that makes it. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that space legs is a bonus. I think for exploration stuff, it could potentially be very interesting. I mean, just walking into places that you couldn't really still go before. But yeah, a lot depends on obviously what they're going to add to it for explorers. Yeah, it's I think particularly the sort of community angle of it is definitely. I think even people who are friends of mine who aren't really that like elite players properly have like tried it a bit, but have actually been sort of wowed by how good the community actually is. Because I think unless you actually play elite, that's generally not that well known to most other people, and it's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sort of you know boost really for the game. I suppose its biggest sort of unintended feature that a sort of great community has coalesced around this already cool game. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens in the near future with the league. I mean, hopefully there's a whole new vista of possibilities. But yeah, take care until then, Commander '07. See you soon. Thanks Raven for the follow. Much appreciated. And thank for anyone else who's followed recently. Follow is always great. It helps the channel enormously. And the follow is free. So thank you very much. Seems to be some confusion actually going around about what actually is of what actually the Frontier people mean about the the update and its graphics and stuff about Horizons and that being updated, because I'm reading conflicting things now. That apparently I'll just be reading this now literally on my phone, that somebody saying that there's been an update post written by one of the FDev employees saying that basically the Horizons people will have the planetary tech. Is like, I'm not sure about this. I've not actually read it so far. I'm just going what someone else is saying. This is getting quite confusing actually, because they initially said that it would be, then they changed that it wouldn't, and now I don't know. Don't take my word for this. I have to find this out myself. Yeah, it's a shame when the things are like this. But I mean, it would be nice to have clarity. I mean, that's one criticism, one fair criticism. I think Frontier in the past has been like sometimes very unclear communication or sort of even times a lack of communication, full stop, on, in some eras. And yeah, I'll have to look into this. I'll probably update everyone on the next stream. I think most people probably know this before I actually stream next anyway. Yeah, Derek, that's exactly what I understood as well. Is that the Odyssey players will be a separate instance from Horizon players. That's not really the problem, though, that I'm alluding to. It's more the fact about the planetary regeneration. The idea, all the entire galaxy, all the worlds of it are being regenerated to this new format, the new technology for Odyssey. But that is also going to be transferred into Horizons. Now, the dispute seems to be, is it going to come on Horizons from May the 19th as well? Or is it going to come in the autumn? That's the confusing part that I'm I'm hearing conflicting things about. Because, especially from my perspective as a sort of event organizer, it makes a huge difference. Especially to scouting, if I'm doing like 2 separate scouting runs or one for the same planet. Because if Horizon is not getting the new planetary tech on May the 19th, it means that, let's say I go to an airless world and I scout it, I have to do one for, if the planetary is going to Horizons, I'm going to have to do one Odyssey scout of the same planet and then a Horizon scout of the same world, and it complicates things a great deal for anyone wanting to scout for an expedition or any other kind of event, racing or whatever else it might be. And this is kind of why people want to know particularly, but so I don't have the answers at the moment. I'm just sort of reading off things that people are sending me, so it's unclear at the moment. I mean, we'll soon know. I mean, whatever happens on next Wednesday, we'll certainly know then what the truth is, but it's as we said, it's like, unfortunately, in the history of Frontier, relations with the community, there have often been times that the one arm of the company doesn't know what the other arm of the company is saying or doing. And not the first company in the history of the world to have this problem, and it's quite a common problem for lots of entities. But this does seem to maybe another example of that, like lack of internal communication maybe, and that's like filtering through to their public statements. But I can't say for sure what's actually going on, but hopefully it'll be clearer by the time I come on stream tomorrow morning. But my intention is definitely to do this from 0700 tomorrow, because of I have real world stuff to do later on. But thank you to everybody who's watched the stream today, everyone who's contributed in the chat. Thank you everyone who's followed. It's been great to see you all again. And until the next time, Commanders, 07, and fly safe, or indeed fly dangerous, fly anywhere you want. And I will see you all in the next one.